House of M for me is definitely the one time where I feel like they set up the event and kind of led into it without feeling like I had to read too many tie-ins. And for that, I can really appreciate this series. So this is issue 2. And with issue 1, another thing that I really appreciate was the fact that it was still in the 616 continuity. They were all trying to discover what they wanted to do with Wanda. Like, did we want to kill her, et cetera, so forth. And there was a lot of moral questions that came up in that regard. So if you want to read it, pause it, check it out at your convenience. Brian Michael Bendis was the writer. Penciler was Oliver Copiel. Inker was Tim Townsend. Colors, Frank Diamarta. Letterer, Chris Ianopoulos. And then there's everyone else working on the book. Now, as issue 1 ended, everyone just kind of disappeared, and Peter was just sort of like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden we see him waking up to this blonde-headed woman, which for all of us longtime readers are assuming it is Gwen Stacy. So I like that they set the stage that way instead of saying, okay, now you got to read this book, and then this book, and then the tie-in, and then the event book. And that's what I'm talking about when I say I get tired of event books, because it gets to be too many. Now, yes, there is millions of tie-ins for this series, but at least with this, if you read the main book, you're not going to feel too lost. So right now we are going over the Uncanny tie-ins and this, and that's it, 'cause that's all I have. And it says the Bronx today. And we see this elderly gentleman walking around, some kids playing, and we find out that this is Captain America. He is, I guess, in this universe, since mutants are now the dominant species, he never got the super soldier serum, and he lived to grow old. And as this little kid says, Trixie, I got to get my basket. Yo, guys, look, it's the old dude. So we see that Steve kind of essentially lived a full life. We see that Emma and Scott are married. They have regular jobs and apparently kids. So that's kind of cool that what they're doing is building the world. And that's what you should do. We come to find out that Allison has her own talk show. She's talking to Simon the Wonder Man. She goes, okay, we'll get to your show in a minute, which is just fabulous, by the way. But first, I have to ask you. Now, Allison, I have to ask. You're on the cover of every magazine in the country with her. Tell me. I'm dying to know. What's going on with you and Carol Danvers? We're very good friends. She's a very special girl. So I appreciate that we're finding out what in this universe, like what's happening to everybody. So Dazzler is a TV show, and this is the woman that we're talking about here is Carol Danvers. She goes, she's the only most popular superhero in America, and she's not even And this Warbird outfit is my favorite version of Carol Danvers. And I can't remember who took it over in Dark Avengers, but that's just always been my favorite outfit. Speaking of which, if you guys know where I can get this figure for a decent price, because I've looked at what it's going for now, because it was a Target exclusive. Oh, the third-party market, them scalpers are killing me. So if you guys know where I can get one for at least 20, maybe 30 bucks, hit me up, because I'd love to have it in my collection. Anyway, Carol is going after Robber, and they say, Remy, head for the park, boyo! So you find out in this universe, Gambit's obviously a mutant and part of the Thieves Guild, but things go too well for old Remy. He gets stopped by Captain Marvel. We find out that Kitty is a teacher, and what I like is one of the questions she asks is, can anybody tell me who the first mutant was? And one of the kids raises their hand, and they go, easy, it was Namor. She goes, that's correct. And what I like about that is you're thinking that's sort of like a throwaway, but that's really important for one of the stories that we get into here in a minute. Now we come to Hell's Kitchen. This detective is looking for Luke Cage because apparently the Kingpin was beaten to a coma, and Sam is on the police force trying to find out what happened. Luke Cage is like, why are you asking questions you already know the answers to? It's insulting to both of us. He goes, damn, man, how does that feel? Because Luke, remember, has his powers. I don't know if they're really considering him a mutant, but he has his super strength. Sam, again, is not really has superpowers. He just has cunning, essentially, and then his tech. But what I like is Sam says, how does what feel? Come on. Putting a sapien brother in Hell's Kitchen? You don't feel a bit used by the system? He goes, how many photo ops they make you do a week being the token sapien? So I like that they use, again, mutants as analogy for racism. So it's just a really interesting way. And what I love about each one that we go through in these stories is how, for example, when Luke comes to investigate, or when Sam comes to investigate Luke Cage, everything has that dark, noir, blood red feeling. Kitty's is more bright because she's in the school. And it sets the tone for each character. We find out Doctor Strange is now psychologist, which I don't want to give too much away. That's why I'm trying not to show too much of the book. But then it says Russia, and we get this beautiful landscape. Yes, this is about the time when digital coloring was really coming into full swing, but nonetheless, this was back before it looked flat. I mean, you can kind of see that Colossus here is 3D rendered to a degree, but still they're trying. And so for this, I'll let it go. Beautiful landscapes, and we see that Peter is a man of the land. He never got, what do you call it? He never got, sorry, I'm having a brain fart. He never got inducted to the X-Men by Charles Xavier. So you just see that Peter, for once in all his years, is finally in this universe has a peaceful life. Now, when I was talking about Kitty asking her students who the first mutant was, we now open to a Stark lab here in Chicago, and we see that Hank McCoy is working with Hank Pym. What Hank is trying to do, not Hank, Henry's trying to do, is single out the X gene. And Beast, he's not Beast, but Hank's saying that's not a good idea. He'll fire you. He'll understand when he sees the results. No, he won't. Let me tell you about Stark. Dr. McCoy, you don't need to. Let me tell you about Tony Stark. He expects bare minimum. He expects the people who cash his checks to do what he says. Because my notes, none of this has been read. And Hank goes, maybe 50 years ago, maybe after World War II, but not now. Just the idea is anti. It's like trying to isolate the thing that makes black people black or Filipino people. You don't understand my point. What I want to do is, it's not one thing. It's not one DNA strand. It's millions of them wrapped together. Stop talking down to me. You expect Tony Stark to pay your bills when you're doing something he clearly told you he does not want you to do. I like you, Henry. We've known each other for a long, good time. But you will get fired if you keep on working. You will get fired and you'll be out of work because the sapient science mind is running out of places. And I just love how Henry's face goes dark and he goes, don't. See, that is visual storytelling right there. And then there's an awkward moment between the two. And Hank, being who he is, he goes, hey, I know what's going on here. No one gets it more than me. When it happened to the dinosaurs, they didn't see it coming. They didn't have the intellect or capacity to understand it, but you do. You're watching it happen, and it stings like a bitch. If the wall roles were reversed, I don't know what I'd do. You're right to feel the way you do. It's not fair that you have to sit here with full awareness and watch it slowly happen. And going from that dark tone that we just saw a moment ago, defeated. So I like that in this story, we are tackling some really serious issues that are still topical, but we're doing it again through storytelling. That's when people say, oh, comics have always been political. Yes, they have. But they knew how to present it in an entertaining way that served the story while still making you think without it feeling like they were just like rolling the comic book up and hitting you on the head. This is a way to make you think. That, to me, is the sign of good storytelling. So this was still back when comics still had ways of doing that. And I definitely enjoy it. Or Storm here, where she's basically like a fashion model to a degree, and her consultant that is like the one that designs everything is, I believe this is Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp. And you can see how Janet has always been like that woman, kind of like the take no shit attitude, just like Aurora. But now she's like, do you know what the House of Magnus is going to be wearing to this gala, et cetera, so forth? And Storm's just like, I don't know if I like this uniform. And we see this look of stress, like, please like it, please like it. So we see how the roles have been reversed in this world. So what's cool about this is we kind of get the whole over arc of different, like Chicago, New York, yada, yada, yada. And then to kind of wrap it all up, we come to the end. And we see Logan dreaming of Weapon X. And all of a sudden, Jean. Morning, James. Now, that's interesting because she didn't call him Logan. She called him James. And he's like, the hell is this? James, what is this? You didn't mind last night. It's your redhead fetish. God, what the hell's wrong with you? And so we see this look of like, what the hell's going on? And that's what I like as the story begins to progress. It really starts to follow Wolverine. Now, I don't want to give away the ending, but the way that the Sentinels are now used in this world, I just love how the entire universe, just everything has been spun on its head. This was, seriously, this and Civil War, I think, were the last two major events that I sat down and thoroughly enjoyed before they got silly or what's the word I'm looking for? Stretched thin. Like, it felt like shortly after House of M and Civil War, I was trying to get into Age of Ultron, and I remember them promoting the hell out of it. And then it just seems like both DC and Marvel, I don't know about Image, but the top two, they would start an event and they would like push it, and they would get some big name titles on it. And then like maybe halfway through, they'd stop promoting it. The artwork would be handed off to another art team. And it's like, guys, consecutiveness is one thing that fans look for. And it's very off-putting when you're halfway through an event and all of a sudden, blah. Now, I kind of have to dance back a little bit. The last event that I did enjoy before I got bored of them was AVX. That was kind of interesting. Granted, I'm tired of seeing superheroes fight each other, but AVX had some interesting things to say. But House of M, we're in issue 2, and now we're starting to see how the world has begun to change. And everything has felt organic. We kind of understand why this happened without having to go read 17 other tie-ins. Everything is self-contained. The artwork overall, as we just talked about, is serviceable. I love that they made sure that, like for here, for example, they made sure that Steve Rogers really has that grandpa look about him. Or, for example, the way that Ms. Marvel's nicely drawn here, showing how she's popular and she knows it, but she's strong. That's how the Captain Marvel or the Ms. Marvel that I remember from this time period. And the same thing here when we get into the conversation with, of course, the color scheme there. But when we're talking about Henry and Beast, the way that they use Hank Pym's facial expressions, like he's getting pissed at Beast. And Beast tries to deflate the situation and just throws facts at him. And that whole tonal change from that to fantastic. Love it. Loved everything about it. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen in this issue, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is like to get your action figures and comics, and go grab this series, whether in the single form or collected trade. I'm a floppy junkie, so I like collected trades. Don't get me wrong, I like graphic novels, but I love reading floppies. It's just how I started reading them, and that's probably how I will read them till the day I die. Anyway, if you haven't also enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little M bell next subscribe, that way we can upload content. You guys get notified. Come to the channel. We love talking with you and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.